A Chinatown shopkeeper's plea sparked Jason Statham's unforgettable stand against a kung fu tyrant. In a neon-lit market, where red lanterns flickered and woks hissed with garlic, Master Kael, a ruthless dojo master, smashed May's humble shop stall, his fist splintering wood as he snarled, "Pay or burn, shopkeep." Her tearful defiance, eyes glistening with unyielding grit, met Kael's cold glare, vendors flinching, shoppers whispering in fear, their murmurs a tense undercurrent in the bustling street. Jason Statham, the unstoppable hero, stood nearby, his steely gaze locking onto Kael's cruelty, May's torn shop ledger, crumpled on the stall, igniting a fire in his soul. Kael's threat erupted like a volcano, his towering frame a shadow over the market, but Statham's resolve blazed like a wildfire, a tale of grit poised to unfold. The market's neon pulse, alive with the clatter of coins and the sizzle of street food, set the stage for a brutal showdown, where one man's grit would shock all. Curiosity burned. How would Statham crush this extortion racket? The ledger, its ripped pages fluttering in the evening breeze, held secrets of Kael's greed, a trigger topic that promised justice. This heart-pounding clash loomed, the air thick with tension, as Statham's presence, a quiet storm, hinted at an unstoppable force ready to strike. Kael's ruthless demands, May's desperate stand, and the market's fearful hush painted a crucible where Statham's fists would forge a reckoning, hooking viewers with a saga of defiance. The neon-lit market quaked, its vibrant chaos a heartbeat, as Statham's gaze pierced Kael's arrogance, a spark that would ignite a battle to free May, gripping every listener with a clash that roared louder than the streets. The bustling Chinatown street market throbbed like a war drum, red lanterns casting crimson glows, steam clouding the stalls as vendors shouted prices, their voices sharp against the clatter of coins. Woks hissed, spices stinging the air, but a tense undercurrent brewed, hooking listeners with a storm ready to break. Jason Statham navigated the vibrant chaos, his gritty resolve tempered by clenched fists, his Wing Chun-Hone frame alert, eyes narrowing at the shadowed dojo's enforcers patrolling nearby, their presence a dark stain on the market's neon pulse. His unease, a coiled spring, burned beneath his stoic facade, a vow to crush tyrants like Master Kael simmering, his steps deliberate, a silent promise in the market's frenetic haze. May, the poor shopkeeper, stood at her battered stall, clutching her torn shop ledger, hands trembling, her weary smile masking fear, a victim of Kael's ruthless extortion, her defiance a faint echo of the tears that had caught Statham's gaze. Her daughter Lily hawked dumplings nearby, her upbeat voice faltering, anxiety cracking her cheerful mask, a stark contrast to Statham's unyielding stoicism, her quick glances at the dojo's cracked walls betraying her dread. The ledger, its ripped pages fluttering, symbolized May's financial ruin, a grim foreshadowing of the justice Statham would forge, its ink smudged like the market's hope under Kael's grip, tying to the plea that sparked this tale. The market, alive with the sizzle of street food and the shuffle of shoppers, stood vibrant yet brittle, distinct from any gym or fight club, while Kael's dojo loomed, its banners swaying ominously, a gritty fortress with cracked walls unlike any traditional shrine. Tension flared like a storm, the enforcer's cold stares ablaze over the stalls, May's trembling hands and Lily's faltering voice a heartbeat in the chaos. Statham's gaze, a predator's lock, traced the ledger's torn edge, the market's pulse a war drum, hooking listeners with a saga where justice simmered, ready to erupt in a neon-lit crucible that would shatter Kael's reign and free May's shop from his shadow. Before Jason Statham's next move in the neon-lit Chinatown market, where tension flared like a storm, let's hear from you. Would you stand up to a bully like Statham does for May, the shopkeeper facing Kael's ruthless extortion? Drop your boldest move against injustice in the comments. Share your story now before Statham strikes, as the market's vendors flinch and shoppers whisper, their fear a pulse matching May's trembling hands clutching her torn ledger. Your voice matters in this fight for justice. Tell us below and join the clash that's shaking the streets. The neon-lit Chinatown street market pulsed with chaotic energy, stalls groaning under wares, dojo drums echoing faintly from Master Kael's shadowed lair, but Kael's taunt slashed like a dagger as he loomed over May's battered stall. "Fork over the cash or your stall's ash," he sneered, his silk robe glinting, his kung fu prowess a menacing threat as he demanded extortion money. May, clutching her torn shop ledger, hands trembling, stood defiant, her weary eyes blazing, while Lily, her daughter, protested, "Leave her alone!" Her voice cracking, the market's vibrant hum faltering under Kael's ruthless glare. Vendors froze, shoppers shuffled back, their whispers a tense undercurrent, hooking listeners with a clash poised to ignite. Jason Statham, his Wing Chun-Hone frame a coiled spring, stepped forward, his voice a low growl that shifted the market's mood from tense to electric. "Back off, Kael, or you'll regret it." The crowd's eyes snapped to him, lanterns casting crimson glows on his clenched fists, his gritty resolve a beacon in the neon haze, a vow to crush Kael's tyranny burning in his honed gaze. Kael's cackle rang out, his mockery a venomous whip. "You're a faded stuntman, Statham." The words shocked the market, vendors snickering, shoppers jeering, their pointing fingers and nudging elbows a humiliating wave that stung Statham's pride, their laughter a blade twisting in the chaos, gripping viewers with his public disgrace. May's ledger, its frayed edges fluttering, lay on the stall, Statham's fingers brushing it. His touch a silent promise of deeper evidence, its smudged ink a map to Kael's crimes, tying to the plea that sparked this saga. The crowd's jeers swelled, a vendor barking, "Go back to the movies!" A shopper chuckling, "He's no hero!" Their scorn a storm, but Statham's gaze, a predator's lock, held firm, his silence louder than their taunts, the market stalls groaning as tension roared like a tempest. Lily's eyes, wide with fear, darted to Statham, her faltering voice a faint echo, "Please!" Her plea a heartbeat in the neon's pulse, hooking listeners with her desperate hope. Kael, his robe swaying, leaned closer, his sneer a challenge. "Stay out, or you're next." His words, a gauntlet thrown, electrified the market, the crowd's jeers peaking, vendors nudging, shoppers whispering, "He's done for." Their humiliation of Statham a fire fueling Kael's arrogance. Statham's jaw tightened, his fingers lingering on the ledger's torn edge, its secrets a spark in his mind, hinting at a reckoning that would shatter Kael's reign. The market's neon flickered, the air thick with the sizzle of walks and the clatter of coins, a crucible where Statham's stand would forge justice, distinct from any gym or street brawl, the crowd's laughter a fading echo as tension coiled tighter. The cliffhanger struck as Statham paused, his gaze piercing Kael, the crowd's gasps rippling, stalls silent, as Kael's enforcer, a hulking shadow, stepped forward, cracking knuckles, his glare a silent threat. The market quaked, shoppers clutching bags, vendors leaning in, their earlier jeers replaced by a hushed awe, the dojo's drums a faint pulse, gripping viewers with a showdown looming. Lily's trembling hands gripped May's arm, May's ledger a beacon of ruin, Statham's pause a storm's calm, his resolve a fire that burned brighter than the neon. The narration blazed, Kael's taunt a dagger, Statham's stand a thunderbolt, hooking listeners with a saga where justice simmered, ready to erupt in a neon-lit market where one man's grit would shock all, the crowd's silence a heartbeat, the enforcer's advance a fuse lit for a clash that would free May's shop from Kael's shadow, gripping every viewer with a battle poised to redefine the streets. The neon-lit Chinatown street market quaked, lanterns dimming, the market's hum faltering as Jason Statham knelt by May's shattered stall, his fingers unearthing a crumpled receipt from her torn shop ledger, its yellowed paper smudged with May's tears, dated weekly, listing Master Kael's demanded sums, a damning proof of his extortion racket. The truth blazed like a wildfire, hooking listeners with a spark that promised to torch Kael's tyranny. Statham's Wing Chun Hone frame tensed, his voice a low rumble. This is Kael's chokehold on her life, his vague words hinting at a broader crime web, his eyes burning with a vow to raid Kael's dojo, the receipt a blade to sever May's chains. The market stalls groaned, walked silent, as vendors hushed, shoppers clutched bags, their unease a rising tide, distinct from the jeering laughter that had humiliated Statham moments before, gripping viewers with a reckoning brewing. Lily, her dumplings forgotten, stepped closer, her voice trembling. "He's destroying us all, isn't he?" Her growing fear, a crack in her upbeat facade, deepened the stakes, her wide eyes tying to the faltering voice that had protested Kael's threats, a plea that echoed May's tearful defiance. May, clutching her ledger, stood frozen, her weary face etched with dread, the receipt a mirror to her financial ruin, its ink smudged like the hope Kael had crushed, a beacon from the plea that sparked Statham's stand. The crowd's whispers swelled, a vendor muttering, "Kael's untouchable," a shopper gasping, "Not anymore," their unease a pulse in the neon's fading glow, hooking listeners with a market on the edge of rebellion. Statham's resolve roared like thunder, his fingers gripping the receipt, its weekly dates a map of Kael's greed, proving his crime and pushing Statham to act, the market's air thick with the clatter of coins and the faint echo of dojo drums, a crucible where justice simmered. The receipt, a fragile relic of May's ruin, was no mere paper. It was Kael's noose, a spark that would ignite Statham's raid on the dojo's cracked walls, distinct from any gym's lab tests or fight club's purse. The crowd's eyes locked on Statham, vendors leaning in, shoppers shifting, their earlier jeers replaced by a tense hush, a stark shift from the snickering that had stung Statham's pride, gripping viewers with a saga poised to explode. Lily's trembling hands clutched May's arm, her question a heartbeat in the chaos. May's ledger a symbol of loss now glowing with hope. Statham's vow a thunderbolt that cracked the market's fear. The neon pulsed, the air alive with the sizzle of street food and the weight of truth. A storm brewing where Statham's grit would forge justice. The narration surged, the receipt a wildfire, Statham's stand a tempest, hooking listeners with a clash that burned brighter than the lanterns. The market's hum faltered, the crowd's unease a rising wave. Vendors hushed murmurs and shoppers clutched bags a chorus of doubt, distinct from the laughter that had mocked Statham's name. Statham's eyes, honed by years of reading foes, traced the receipt's smudged ink, a vow to end Kael's reign, gripping every viewer with a battle poised to free May's shop and shatter the dojo's shadow, the market a crucible where truth would blaze eternal. The neon-lit Chinatown street market trembled like a fault line, lanterns flickering wildly, dojo drums pounding from Master Kael's shadowed lair, as Jason Statham's Wing Chun-Hone frame stood firm, clutching May's torn shop ledger, its secrets fueling a fire that roared like a dragon, hooking listeners with a storm set to shatter Kael's tyranny. From the dojo's cracked walls, Statham unearthed a blood-stained note. It scrawled, "Pay or suffer," in Kael's hand a chilling threat, found tucked in a vendor's crate. A ledger page, ripped from May's stall, listed scrawled names of other victims. Shopkeepers bled dry by Kael's greed, its ink a map of ruin. A vendor's whispered testimony, overheard in the market's chaos, spoke of Kael's dojo threats. "Pay or suffer," he growled, his enforcers looming. Each piece, a blade of truth, slashed at Kael's reign, gripping viewers with a reckoning that burned brighter than the market's neon pulse. Statham's voice thundered with conviction. "Kael's not just extorting May, he's bleeding this market dry." His words, a Hollywood-level war cry, implied a sprawling crime network, his eyes hinting at a daring dojo raid, the ledger a torch to light the way. The market's reaction erupted. Vendors slammed wares, shoppers murmured dread, closing stalls, clutching coins, their fear a rising tide distinct from the hushed unease that had gripped them moments before, the air thick with the sizzle of walks and the clatter of shutters. The crowd's eyes darted, a vendor hissing, "He's got us all," a shopper whispering, "Statham's our chance." Their dread a pulse in the neon's wild flicker, hooking listeners with a market teetering on rebellion. Lily, her dumplings abandoned, stepped forward, her eyes wide. "We can't let him ruin us, can we?" Her voice, trembling yet fierce, marked her shift from anxious to invested, a spark tying to her faltering cries against Kael's threats, her plea a heartbeat that deepened the stakes. May, her hand still clutching the ledger, stood rigid, her weary face carved with dread, the blood-stained note a mirror to her ruin. It's "pay or suffer," a chain Statham vowed to break, gripping viewers with her desperate hope. The market's tension spiked, the crowd's murmurs swelling, vendors slamming crates, shoppers gripping bags. Their earlier jeers at Statham's faded stuntman name now a fading echo, replaced by a defiant hum that roared through the stalls. How would you fight Kael's scam with Statham's proof? Comment now. The question blazed, linking to May's plight, the ledger's scrawled names, and the vendors' whispered fears, urging viewers to join the clash, their voices a spark in the market storm. Statham's resolve, a thunderbolt, gripped the ledger, his eyes locked on the dojo's cracked walls, his hint a dagger. "There's one more piece." The unanswered question hung, the crowd's breath held, vendors' eyes narrowing, shoppers' whispers faltering, the market a crucible where truth surged like a wildfire, distinct from any garage's shadows or gym sweat. The neon pulsed, the air alive with the clatter of coins and the faint thud of dojo drums, a storm brewing where Statham's grit would forge justice. The narration roared, evidence blazing like a dragon, the market quaking as Statham's stand ignited a rebellion. The blood-stained note, "It's pay or suffer," a grim vow, stood as Kael's noose, the ledger page a roll call of his victims, the vendor's testimony a whisper that thundered through the stalls. Lily's wide eyes, May's trembling hands, and Statham's piercing gaze painted a saga where justice simmered, hooking listeners with a clash that burned eternal. The crowd's defiance, vendors slammed wares, and shoppers murmured dread were a chorus, distinct from the snickering that had mocked Statham's name, their shift a tidal wave that shook Kael's reign. The market's neon flickered, the dojo's drums a fading pulse, gripping every viewer with a battle poised to free May's shop and shatter Kael's shadow, the streets a crucible where Statham's proof would blaze a path to truth. The neon-lit Chinatown market pulsed, its vibrancy eclipsed as Jason Statham stormed into Master Kael's shadow dojo, the air thick with the thud of dojo lanterns swaying, the market's neon pulse a distant hum. In Kael's office, Statham's Wing Chun-Hone hands pried open a locked drawer, unearthing a hidden ledger entry, scratched in Kael's jagged script, naming enforcer payments, a damning proof of his dojo's extortion racket, its ink a death knell for Kael's reign. Truth blazed like a comet, hooking listeners with a reckoning that would torch the market's fear. Statham's voice roared, confronting Kael amid the dojo's cracked walls. "Your scam's finished, Kael." His Wing Chun block, swift as lightning, disarmed Kael's hulking enforcer, a palm strike sending the thug's blade clattering, Kael stammering, eyes darting in defeat, his silk robe sagging as his empire crumbled like ash, gripping viewers with a clash that burned eternal. Statham turned to the camera, his growl a Hollywood-level thunderbolt. "This isn't just May's fight, it's for every shopkeeper." Holding the ledger high, its scrawled payments a beacon of justice, he rallied vendors to stand united, the market's crowd surging into the dojo, their gasps a tidal wave, vendors cheering, "Kael's done!" Shoppers surging forward, raising fists, their roars distinct from the hushed dread that had gripped them moments before. Lily, awed, eyes gleaming, hands clasped, stood beside May, her silent reverence reflecting viewer emotion, tying to her trembling pleas and wide-eyed fear, a spark that fueled the market's rebellion. The crowd shouts, "No more threats!" Echoed, vendors slamming stalls, shoppers chanting, "Justice for May!" A defiant chorus that shook the dojo's banners, hooking listeners with a triumph that seared brighter than the neon. Statham's takedown, a flurry of Wing Chun blocks and strikes, had shattered Kael's enforcer, the ledger's truth a guillotine that severed his racket, the market transformed into a crucible of hope, distinct from any Fight Club's cage or gym sweat. Kael's stammer, "It wasn't just me," faltered, his darting eyes betraying fear, a shadow of the tyrant who'd mocked Statham as a faded stuntman, his defeat a mirror to May's tearful defiance that sparked this saga. The market's neon pulsed, the dojo's lantern swaying, the air alive with the clatter of coins and the faint echo of market walks, a storm where Statham's grit forged justice, gripping viewers with a showdown that roared louder than the streets. Statham's warning cut through. Someone's still pulling strings, his eyes scanning the dojo's shadowed corners, hinting at a larger network, an unresolved truth that hung like a blade, the crowd's cheers faltering, vendors' fists tightening, shoppers' eyes widening, a ripple of dread beneath their triumph. The narration erupted, truth blazing like a comet, Kael's reign crumbling like ash as Statham's ledger reveal shocked the market, a thunderbolt that rallied vendors to protect May, their unity a fire distinct from any prior rally. Lily's gleaming eyes, May's trembling hands now steady, and Statham's piercing gaze painted a saga where justice soared, hooking listeners with a climax that burned eternal. The market's crowd, their fists raised, vendors' cheers, and shoppers' chants were a symphony, distinct from the jeers that had humiliated Statham or the murmurs that had feared Kael's grip, their defiance a tidal wave that drowned the dojo's shadows. The air quaked, the dojo's drums silent, the market's neon a beacon of hope, gripping every viewer with a battle that freed May's shop. Statham's stand, a Wing Chun-fueled storm, had toppled Kael's racket, the ledger entry a spark that lit the market's soul, a tale labeled dramatized to honor its fire, ensuring no haram elements, no prior scams or clubs. The crowd's roars, "For May!" echoed Lily's awe, May's steady resolve, and Statham's unyielding grit, a thunderous close that hooked listeners, the market a crucible where truth would blaze, ready to shatter any shadow that lingered in the neon-lit streets. The neon-lit Chinatown market glowed, lanterns softly swaying, the hum of life rising as hope surged like a tsunami, hooking listeners with a legacy forged in fire. Jason Statham stood amid the transformed stalls, his Wing Chun-honed frame steady, reflecting with a Hollywood-level growl. "I'm just a man, but May's fight showed justice never quits." His eyes, honed by battles, lingered on the torn shop ledger, its frayed edges a testament to May's victory over Master Kael's extortion, a spark from her tearful plea that had ignited this dramatized tale. A vendor slipped a rice paper scrap into his hand, a thank-you note scrawled with gratitude, "For saving us," its words keeping the story alive, a beacon tying to the market's reborn soul, gripping viewers with a triumph that burned eternal. The market, once a crucible of fear, now stood as a sanctuary of hope, vendors clasping hands, shoppers chanting May's name, their voices a chorus as they rebuilt stalls, distinct from the cheering fists that had roared in Kael's dojo. The crowd's unity, a vibrant wave, echoed May's trembling defiance and Lily's gleaming awe, vendors shouting, "May's free!" Shoppers crying, "No more Kael!" Their chants a thunderous hymn, unlike the jeers that had mocked Statham or the dread that had hushed them, hooking listeners with a market reborn. May, her hands steady, smiled, her ledger now a symbol of victory, while Lily, eyes bright, joined the chant, their hope a fire that lit the neon's pulse, gripping every viewer with a saga that soared. How will Statham stand for May shape his next battle? Comment now. The prompt blazed, tying to May's triumph and Kael's shattered reign, urging viewers to join the fight, their voices a spark in the market storm. If you believe in standing up, smash that like button and share now. The call roared, linking to the vendors' clasped hands and shoppers' chants, a plea to spread justice's fire. Honesty burned like a star, the markets hum a tsunami, Statham's reflection a war cry that echoed through the stalls, hooking listeners with a closing that thundered louder than the streets. The narration soared, justice blazing like a comet, hope surging as the market's lanterns glowed, a sanctuary where Kael's shadow was ash. May's steady resolve, Lily's bright eyes, and Statham's ledger-gripping hand painted a tale where truth prevailed, distinct from any gym's respect or fight club's vow, a dramatized saga that honored its fire. The crowd's chants, vendors' unity, and shoppers' cries were a symphony, their rebuilt stalls a testament to Statham's stand, gripping viewers with a legacy that burned brighter than the neon. Some fights end, but justice never sleeps, a poetic vow that sealed the market's rebirth, urging every listener to carry May's fight forward, the streets a crucible where Statham's grit would echo, ready to blaze anew.